AR is a buzzword that every tech giant likes to bring it up, but where's it going?
We've got a lot of AR news to share, so stick around for your daily charge.
Good morning and welcome to the Daily Charge. It's Thursday, February 20th. I'm Roger Chang.
And I'm Scott Stein.
And here are today's headlines. Augmented reality, Apple, Google, Facebook, everyone's talking about it. Even HTC, which really makes a VR headset, is jumping on the bandwagon. Scott, what's the latest?
Well, I met HTC's new CEO recently, and the Vive VR headset is getting a collection of modular faceplates. I've got one right here. And this kind of reminds me of like Moto mods.
Yeah.
But the idea is that you could add extra features. So if you buy your Cosmos headset, you could eventually add mixed reality. Now that's not like a HoloLens that's putting things into the real world. It's taking stuff from the real world and then putting it in VR. Mm-hmm. That's like a couple of other VR headsets that are out there. But you're blending worlds. This is not that one, but the XR version of it is coming for developers this year. But they also teased another thing, which is this next pair of like future glasses called Project Proton. That's more like what Qualcomm and other companies have already been promising. Right. These lightweight, plug into your phone, maybe 5G enabled future mixed reality things. So like that maybe I don't even want this. But in the meantime,
this is what we have.
Yeah, we're gonna be dongly and hot swappable.
And I'm curious that HTC has made a big bet into VR. A lot of the industry is shifting towards AR. Are they trying to like have it both ways? Or are they shifting to AR and away from VR? Like, what do you think is the game plan there?
Right. The word now is like it's really tough to make AR glasses, and it's taking a lot longer than anyone expected. So the timetable keeps getting pushed back, both for cost and battery life and 5G networks that they're not really on their feet yet. So in the meantime, buying time with like something affordable, trying to build it into VR because it's already working, and get the cost down. Because like Oculus, those headsets are expensive, but at $400, that's actually some of the cheapest stuff out there. Some of this other stuff might be pushing $800, $1,000.
Wow.
And
HoloLens and Magic Leap are how much?
Thousands. So you're talking about spending a level that no one would pay except for a business that's got that money to spend.
And VR experiences are generally closed off, right? You wear this big mask, it covers everything. Yeah. And I know these pass-through mods or whatever are supposed to answer that. How does that work? How do you convert a VR headset into an AR headset?
Well, again, it's like really about cameras. It's just adding the camera capability. Another company that makes this $10,000 one called Vario has
also super cheap.
Right, also super affordable, but spectacular. Has this one that also, if the cameras are high quality and the lag is low, you're basically just showing, like the Oculus Quest does this in a lower res way. You look around the real world, and then you can paint things virtually into that world.
Got it.
But you're seeing it through like pass-through cameras.
Right, so it isn't reality. It's reality is fed through a camera feed.
Yes, and if it's good enough, then you don't really notice too much. But the difference, like HoloLens and Magic Leap, are like where you see the real world, and then like holographic ghosts are projected on it. That's a little different.
All right, you also got to take a look at a pair of slimmer AR glasses, potentially powered by my favorite topic, 5G.
Yes.
Tell me more about this.
Yeah, so speaking of AR ghosts, the Nreal is a company that is releasing this foldable pair of like sunglass type. They're almost like a Magic Leap, but something you fit in your pocket, and they're powered off your phone. So you plug them in, and you can see projected out these effects. And Spatial is a company that's already been working on creating this like holographic office of the future, like telecommuting, where you can share a conference with virtual Roger is here, and we're looking at the same documents, and we can put them on the table. And it's cool because it's cross-platform. They're working on, you can have a phone, a laptop, HoloLens, Oculus, like VR, AR, or these glasses. Wow. They're trying to be cross-platform, and they're also partnering now with some international 5G carriers to test making the thing less reliant on your computer and live out there. But I got to test this without the 5G, just looking at with the glasses. Some of it's a little wonky, but also they're trying to build that stuff that right now doesn't really exist. And if they're trying to rely on phones or other software, between Microsoft, Apple, and Google, they don't make it very easy to share documents in that future world. So we're kind of seeing like stepping stones here.
And how does that work with 5G?
Good question. We have to see. The 5G promise, like 5G is the big, like, what's the point? Kind of like the way you'd stream movies or stream games, the amount of remote rendering that happens in 5G is going to be such that like instead of having your phone overheat or some little processor, you're going to be able to do this in the cloud. The idea is, and that you're going to be able to push that to the headset and have it work smoothly. Now that depends on how good and lag-free your network
is. What's the bandwidth? What's the latency? What's the connection like?
Absolutely. Already, like my phone has a hard time like on the train or like any moment.
Yeah, this idea of edge computing, I've heard about and talked about a lot. Like the idea is like a lot of the work gets done like off-site.
Yes.
And like Google Stadia is a perfect example of that, right? Like,
that is. And Stadia might really be the beginnings of exploring some of that stuff, but starting with games.
Right. All right. One of the best examples of AR right now are Snapchat filters, and Snap has a new one that turns a floor into lava or water. Now, Scott, these filters are fun and silly, but they really do serve as a gateway to more extensive AR experiences, right?
I do. That's our office flooded with AR water. Now, you've seen like a ton of AR effects and filters and things. I'm always interested in the stepping stones of this, especially from companies like Snapchat or what Facebook's doing with Instagram, or Apple, because again, these headsets are not really easy to make, and everyone's looking at the tech on phones in the meantime as a stepping stone, building up these tools. Snap is working on some sort of pair of AR glasses in the future.
Right.
Facebook's going to be. So now it's ground recognizing filters. I mean, in the short term, your floor is going to be covered in like branded pizzas and like sports stuff.
That sounds both like amazing and a nightmare for me.
Yeah, it sounds awful and sometimes wonderful. But and kind of you're seeing all the stuff get plastered with AR as it starts to recognize and replace other things in the world. And that's kind of that weird dystopian / like weird futuristic world that we've been thinking about. But I just like tracking those little steps because, again, like you don't have the headset, but you can play with your phone app.
Right.
And that's available to check out.
All right, lastly, we've got a little treat. This is courtesy of Bridget Carey and Mike Sorrentino, who are busy at Toy Fair, but they left for us the new Baby Yoda Funko Pop.
That is ridiculously
right
cute.
Right there. Look at that. Here. There's that. Go ahead. Yeah, look at him bobble. Look at this amazingness.
That. Oh, my God.
And he is super adorable. The color was a little weird, especially if you look at the promo photos for it, but actually in person it's starting to grow on me.
It's a mint green.
And the Mandalorian, the Mando.
Oh, yeah.
You can't have one without the other, right?
This is the flood. This is the Baby Yoda flood.
They're actually,
underway.
Bridget and Mike are at a press conference. I think it actually just wrapped up shortly, a little while ago, on all the new Baby Yoda toys that are coming out this year.
Yeah.
Really capitalizing on last year's craze. Apparently,
right, like I wanted that last year. Yeah.
People are still into this. Apparently. Bridget, by the way, sent us a note and said that the damn coolest toy she saw was a animatronic Baby Yoda in a pod made by Hasbro, and it blinks and coos and sleeps, and has touch sensors.
Oh, of course.
It has to have touch sensors.
Yes,
I mean, it's got to be smart, right? It's coming out in the fall.
It's going to hover around and follow you?
I mean, that would be amazing.
I want
Even
that.
If it had wheels. I don't need the hovering. I get the hovering thing's kind of difficult.
The hovering is tough, but moving around, seemingly gliding around.
There will also be a Build-A-Bear Yoda, in case you're a fan of Build-A-Bear.
It will never end.
No, it won't end. It's interesting how they got to such a late start to this, but now it's like they're making up for lost time.
Right, and
we've got everything.
They got the season 2. They're gonna more Yoda on tap. The Baby Yoda ride.
That's right. All right.
Eventually,
that is it for our headlines. Now it's time to fire off some questions about today's topics, if you've got them. Want to pick Scott's brain? Please pick Scott's brain, and ask him if he can tell the difference between reality and virtual reality or augmented reality, because I don't think he does know. Anyways, now it's time. While you're at it, why don't you subscribe and ring the bell so you can join us for all the live shows. In the meantime, BVG, what's on everyone's mind?
Listen, them waiting till now to get Baby Yoda out there, that's all part of the strategy. Distance makes the heart grow fonder. They're going to make you want that thing so bad that you just can't live without it, and they're going to make you work for it. We don't have to wait for movies to come out anymore. They're pretty much in the theater, then immediately on demand. They're going to make you wait for your toys. That's the game Disney plays, man.
Well, second season's coming out. Is it later this year?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Baby Yoda even smells great.
There you go.
No, there's no smell here. There's no.
He's vinyl.
It's vinyl. It's the smell
plastic.
of vinyl.
Yeah, Scott, if anything,
it's the smell of opportunity.
Like dead frog.
It's the smell of money. Just
the smell of your
cold
money.
Hard cash going
disappearing
to Disney.
into Baby Yoda.
Just flying into Disney's.
That the Baby Yoda
Money
bank
bin.
that just takes your money
Ooh.
and doesn't give it back.
That's so meta.
That is the most meta thing we may have ever said on this
Make
show.
that. Do it. Yeah. My kids would want it.
I'm going to have to edit around all this for like the audio podcast though, because like, no, it's not going to make sense to anybody. Like,
Sorry,
oh, yeah, look
for,
at this.
for folks on the audio podcast, we're holding the Funko Pop.
Oh, yeah, storytelling.
It's a miniaturized version of Baby Yoda. There's a miniaturized version of the Mandalorian with the big bobblehead. They're both bobbleheads.
I'm holding a bobblehead Baby Yoda. It's bobbling adorably at me. Big black eyes.
Careful, you are wandering into some ASMR territory I do not want to go down.
Listen. You can hear it. You can hear it bobble.
Well, now it made it completely worth it for all the audio podcast listeners.
There you go.
All right, before we get into the questions, I want to give a shout out to David Claviera. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Either way, he's the guy, one of a few out there who help us track our time codes when we publish the episode so that you don't have to sit through the opening intro.
Oh, yeah,
vamp.
thank you very much.
It's really awesome to see that community effort, so thanks, David. First up, let's take a question from our friend Matthew Datcher on YouTube. He says, any idea what the killer AR app will be for consumers?
That is a really good question. We don't have one yet. And I think, like, you know, you can see companies like Spatial trying to figure it out. I mean, Pokemon was the killer AR app.
For a little while, yeah.
For a while, and it's still, nothing has beaten it. I think, furniture stuff, weirdly, is really, that may sound gimmicky, but, like, Warby Parker's one. Like, these are weirdly practical ones where you try on the glasses and see what they look like.
Right.
And that's great. Similarly, I think a number of companies are trying to measure out your home still and put things in it and size things. So like that interior design thing is super practical, whether you remember to use it or whether it works with all the stuff you want. I think that's intriguing. I think the other killer thing, like you'll see a lot of companies, we'll see how killer it is. We'll talk about telepresence. Facebook, that's a giant direction for them continually. Spatial and others, the idea that, it's like we already do this now where we're having teleconferencing. But like imagine your Zoom or your other thing or Skype where now you're sitting with other people in your room in a mix of like, here's your office and here's some virtual stuff. And it just kind of begins to blend. Is that annoying or helpful? I think it'll be a mix of stuff. Everyone's going to throw stuff against the wall to see how much that's helpful for you. But I don't know the rest of it. Then you got floors of lava and pizza floors.
No, Datch, it's a great question. And if we had the answer, we wouldn't be working here. We'd probably be off making hundreds of dollars on an AR project.
I have the answer. Pizza floors. Collaborative pizza floors. Well, I think that the multiplayer element in AR is still not here. And a lot of companies moving towards that together, kind of see what that turns into. That could be really intriguing. But yeah, I think it's about other people. I think AR is about other people. Otherwise, what are you doing? You're building a 3D thing alone.
Right. Also, hardware-wise, we just don't have the right hardware to power the real AR experiences we really want out of this, right? Like right now, there are these glasses, but like no one's going to buy those things. Like the phone stuff, it feels very gimmicky. It's these snap filters, and that's it. They're like one-off.
They're totally one-off gimmick things. And then like the other part, which is Google's been trying this with Lens, but going all the way back to Google Glass, like how much do you want your glasses to be your tricorder for life, where it analyzes the world, can pick up things? That's incredibly hard to do and requires a lot of the world to already be ready to work with that stuff, which is like the IoT, 5G dream of all of that. Some of that stuff, like I think about facial scanning, face identification, which everyone's cracking down on, but that's also part of that weird future/Terminator dream of like remembering people.
Being able to walk into like a bar and be like, oh, I know you. You're so-and-so. I met you 10 years ago.
God, I still think there's going to be a lot of back and forth push on like apps that may start seeing if you could authorize that for certain
there was
opt-in
like
needs.
one AR company, now it's defunct, that they were making AR glasses. Like I talked to their CEO and he like kind of, I mean, he said that. It's like, that's, and he said it, he didn't say, like, I don't think he understood the consequences of that privacy-wise, but it was more like, you have Alzheimer's, or if you've got,
absolutely,
like
there's a lot of
being able to like
purposes for
have
memory.
that data being pulled into. I'm like, yeah, but there's also some privacy concerns there.
It's about privacy bubbles. Yeah, I think it's like you have to be able to opt in with trusted groups. It can't just be something that just happens, and that's how you're going to manage that or trust that. But that whole like smart glasses, the idea of it being smart and analyzey is the other part of AR that can't be overlooked besides I'm going to put virtual things in your world. So there's also that.
So Scott, while we're still on the topic of AR, VR, the future of the industry, you actually had a conversation with the new CEO of HTC not too long ago.
I did.
Help me pronounce it. I know his first name is Yves, but what was his last name again?
You're testing me. Yves
Maten?
Yves Mater, I believe.
Mater? Okay.
Mater? Yeah. I really apologize.
He was very
Damn
very
it!
Swiss
Now
and
I'm
very
going to get
kind
this
and
wrong.
very intelligent.
I had it, and then I was
put him on the spot,
That's why I said
Brian.
before HTC CEO, because I was like, I trying to remember how to pronounce.
You got it right in the video, which I edited last night, mind you. I wanted to maybe
If you
cut
watch
to
the video.
Well, I was gonna say let's cut to a little excerpt from this real quick. Just take a
cool.
listen, because your conversation. We'll just put a minute in here, but your conversation with him is utterly fascinating, and some of his analogies are just out of
And
this
this is
world.
before Mobile World Congress, which then got canceled. So it's kind of he was here in New York.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a watch.
PC based and moving more mobile. And HTC had made phones before, and it sounds like, there's the blockchain phone and there's some others technologies still being built. Where do you compare yourself versus the rest of the industry and the rest of the landscape?
We are building a market. I mean, and I would like to say that everyone, the previous name you mentioned, we are all here to build this world of virtuality. And we are building the market. We started with Vive to build the market. And now we have, Facebook with Oculus helping us to build the market. And they are so welcome because all together we will make it happen. What's funny to think is, the way they make it and the way we make it is different. Early in the 19, you have US starting to build the car industry and Europe starting to build a car industry. At that time, nobody really understood why I should have a car. We have horses, we have train, why we should have cars. And some visionary, realize it will change totally the game. And in the US, you have a guy like Henry Ford. And his vision was, I want to make it mass market. Designed to be mass market, designed to be as price less as possible and black. While in Europe, we had the same concern, how to make this industry works. You remember Benz, Mercedes, BMW, Peugeot, Delage, Delahaye, Bugatti, and all those guys, their target was to say, the market is segmented. How can we give opportunity to as many people, bringing them the technology they need to make the car industry happening? And if you look 100 years after, Ford's still here, and Mercedes-Benz or BMW or Peugeot still here too. The target is, we need to create the market. There is not only one way to create the market. There are several ways to create the market. And the beauty is that we have Oculus creating the market in one way, while Vive is creating the market the other way.
I thought that was just a really interesting little tidbit. He does love to make analogies to the auto market, though. He did that several times in your conversation.
Yeah. He's a car guy. And I also like that it sets up that like HTC is the Mercedes. It's a very
I know. It's a pretty lofty position.
It's a nice position.
Yeah.
But it is. I really like that. I also love his shirt, and I felt like that was like, I was like, wow, I'm going to do that next time, and it's not going to work well for me. But
it was a total power play.
Dude, he's a CEO. He could pull that off.
Right, he just comes in. I was like, oh my god.
As Brian says, it's a power play.
It's a total power play.
It works.
That was a smart move, and it was cool. I thought that was also a smart analogy because, exactly. I think there's no denying that Facebook is going to win out on price and mass market. It's being engineered to do that. And I think Vive for a while has been looking at business. And some people may see that as a retreat, but also like that's the biggest useful market out there right now.
I mean, that's where the money is too.
Yeah, that's where the money is.
Sure.
That's where people are developing, making movies, designing stuff. And I will see, anecdotally at least, people are making stuff in VR. They're building stuff in VR. I see Vives because Oculus and the way it's closed off with its tracking, the flexibility with something like Vive is more developer friendly, and I've heard that a lot. And we'll have to see how that plays out, but I think that's also the creator versus the consumer a little bit in the landscape. But it is interesting. The car thing was, and again, it takes decades, and we're starting to hear about this stuff that it's going to take decades in a world where like the apocalypse feels like it looms all the time. It's hard to imagine decades, but there you have it. I do think this stuff is not like an instant fix. It's watching it over time.
Yep.
He had some really great perspectives on everything. He's a fascinating person to listen to talk and just like let his mind go. We'll of course link to that interview if you want to watch the whole thing. If you have any remote interest in VR or AR, it took me a minute to like digest some of the conversation, but that's because I'm a dummy. It got me there. All right,
it took me time too. These are always like mind blowing talks. His thoughts on 5G were really intriguing. As he started talking about the sharing, the sort of data load management between devices, and that it could more intelligently load balance. That's still, I'm like, I want that explained again to me. Yeah,
it's almost like smart processing, like being able to like know when to devote the horsepower to this device versus this device.
Yeah, he made that was like a main point he was bringing up, and I was like, I am not fully up to speed on all of that, but he was claiming that like with 5G, you're able to do that in a way that you can't with previous networks, and that will also carry through to IoT. It makes sense if you have like 8 different wearable things.
Right.
They could start
I think
distributing.
it's the next level. Right now, like networks have something called software-defined networks that allow basically them to move bandwidth from place to place as needed.
Yeah.
And this is sort of the next step. It's like layering, once you get the bandwidth, layering like computing horsepower on top of that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was cool. And now, I mean, Mobile World Congress is not happening.
It's not.
This was when he came in January. The idea was that we'd learn more then. But it sounds like at GDC they're going to be showing some more about the XR faceplate. That the Proton thing is a little ways off. I think it's going to line up with where Qualcomm's going with.
Got it. Yeah.
All these.
That's the one that has me more intrigued for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But then like by the time that comes out, I feel like you're going to hear about like 5 other companies all doing things along those lines with different features.
Hey, when you're Mercedes, you take your time, right?
You do.
You do it right.
It was a cool that analogy totally, like Brian said, it stuck with me, and that was like it's something to grab onto.
It's a very generous description.
It is, and the shirt, everything. I was like, oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like here we are, we're in the race car.
All right, we just have a few minutes left. We really got to try to get some questions actually answered. Timothy says, does the AR companies rely on devs making the apps or adoption rates by consumers? Or are they aiming for pros instead of just consumers?
A little bit of all of that. I think if you're talking to like a company making Magic Leaps and starting with the Magic Leap HoloLens side of things, increasingly Magic Leap is joining the HoloLens side, going to business. But that's like going right to businesses, trying to come up with tools, and maybe even not create apps, but just like have develop a framework to collaborate and use it to work on that. Sometimes those companies will also really fund and guide exploratory projects, and so those become like Magic Leap's done that for years with art. That's why Tribeca and Sundance, you'll see these artistic experiments that are really ways of exploring that stuff. Then I think you get into like there's no money in it unless there are users, right? So
and also developers don't really want to develop for it if there's no base. So
it's like Pokemon, that goes to the phone thing. So then you get into like the phone side of things. Snap and Instagram, that's a totally different world, because now you're getting into, do people think of it as AR or they think of it as a filter? Tons of influencers and others selling filters, having filters, lenses. Now that's an AR tool, but it's an interesting model because there you have like, it's on phones, people are having fun with it. There's a market, there's branding. This is kind of like the beginning of the possible future you could have with glasses, where it's like a living economic solution for people. Like there's actual people wanting to show off their stuff, share what they've got. You've got this new filter you created, this new lens. Pizza Hut's got a whatever, or CNET's got something. Pizza floors.
Sure.
New Star Trek thing. I'm just making up brands to throw in there. I'm trying to be spread out. Star Wars.
Just to get this back on track because we're going to run out of time.
Yeah.
Sorry. I feel like this is going to be one of those things as an industry tentpole that the use case is always going to come into question. Where can this be useful?
Yes.
And that's the interesting part, is the versatility and where it can work in and go, and how we find new ways that you never thought or never would have expected. There's great conversation happening right now in our YouTube chat about it. I just wanted to point out one From Timothy, he says, I would love more AR, VR for aviation school, like bungee jumping or skydiving.
Oh, yeah.
There's an interesting thought. Never would have occurred to me.
Definitely.
Eric goes on to say, please do more with AR than just photo filters. You said it yourself, that's kind of like the gateway drug for it right now. But yeah, we'd love to see, obviously, more than just silly Snapchat photo filter things.
I think there will be a lot more of that. And I think AR is a little more challenging because the hardware is not fully baked. And the stuff that really uses it is thousands of dollars. VR, you're at the point now where you have a couple $100s with a really good headset. I think you're going to start seeing a lot more stuff like that, and you're already starting to, where they see a market and they dive in because they know people are interested.
And really, with VR, I still see it's less of a consumer thing. It's more, even if for consumers, like VR is a like amusement park experience, right?
Yeah.
So that's sort of what it is now.
It is, although there's a lot, like you mentioned with the flight training or other things, there's a lot of training applications with VR that get really interesting. Sports uses it, or, again, like flight or
there's actually a new Microsoft flight simulator coming out.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be like photorealistic. I wonder if it'll actually kind of work with like HoloLens or something for some sort of like application.
I'm sure there'll be elements that will dovetail with that.
It's all Microsoft. It's all in the same family.
Right. Oh, I saw like an incredible, the Vario demo I saw put me in a cockpit. This is on the high end level. That they're already using this with Volvo, and they're using it for military type simulation training, where you can put yourself in a cockpit, even one that's a mix of real and virtual, where it could see the readout, and then everything outside of you is virtual, and you're learning how to operate the real switches and displays.
Oh, wow.
You can see the real world around you, and it can also use eye tracking to see what you're engaging in and help you get feedback on the stuff you're missing. Volvo's using it to test drive real cars, where they're putting it. This is mind-blowing, but on test tracks, they're driving cars and then painting. I saw like a demo of this with a virtual car sitting in, and they were painting it around me. Real cars with new virtual interfaces to test out how the layouts would work and begin thinking about how the car design could function for you, the driver, in terms of what's distracting, what's helpful. So that's crazy.
Wow.
And that's actually, like, Volvo's one of the early partners for them, but like that's the stuff that's beginning to happen. And I think that's where you blend like training and building and doing stuff in the real world.
All right, we have gone way over time. Unfortunately, we got to cut the conversation short, but as always, thank you, Scott, for coming on. We'll have a lot more to chew on and digest with more and more VR. I do recommend, if you get a chance, folks, we'll link to it. Check out his conversation with Yves from HTC, and I hope everybody has a great weekend. Farewell from Baby Yoda. That one goes specifically out to Eric, who is not a fan of Baby Yoda.
What? Come on.
Come on.
It's okay.
It cuts through even the most cynical heart.
The
Baby
eyes
Yoda.
are a little bit creepy.
I mean, that's part of the point.
Yeah. Anyways, Roger, go ahead and take us out.
All right. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter. And as always, if you want to learn more, there are links to all today's stories in the description below. Plus, the show is also available as an audio podcast. Links to subscribe to that are in the description as well. For The Daily Charge, I'm Roger Chang.
I'm Scott Stein.
Thanks for joining us.
Can't get enough? Check out The Daily Supercharge, our extended post show with special features, audience Q&A, and in-depth reviews. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.